TV shows often work to such insanely tight production deadlines that it's honestly surprising more unhinged mistakes don't slip through the cracks. Even the most detail-orientated showrunners have only so much time and energy that they can devote to tidying everything up, so often moments they didn't want you to see end up being aired to millions. So with that being said, I'm Jem from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 TV moments they didn't want you to see. Number 10. AI-generated posters in True Detective Night Country. The polarizing recent 4th season of True Detective invited controversy early on when fans noticed that his 2nd episode appeared to feature garish AI-generated art. During the scene where Detective Navarro interviews a local miner in his apartment, the wall behind him features a poster for a metal band that looks suspiciously uncanny, as though it was created by AI during post-production. The lack of detail on the band's face and generic, scarcely comprehensible text, including the nonsense phrase, "seconds live," point to AI assistance. Showrunner Issa Lopez eventually chimed in on the matter on X, seeming to tactically confirm that the image was indeed AI created, though offering a bizarre, rather dubious explanation that it was made with self-aware artistic intent rather than laziness. Lopez says, "The idea is that it's so sad up there in Alaska that some kid with AI made the posters for a loser metal festival for boomers." Many felt that this was simply a case of Lopez unconvincingly attempting to deflect criticism about the show's unsubtle use of AI tools, as proved an unfortunate distraction from the scene itself. Number 9. Matthew Perry forgets his line in Friends. Ever since Friends hit streaming services, fans have noticed a number of revealing continuity issues due to its new widescreen presentation, given that the show was originally aired in a 4:3 ratio. Despite being shot in widescreen, the directors only ever framed their shots to account for a boxy 4:3 TV presentation. For Friends' streaming release though, they simply undid the widescreen crop and called it a day, ensuring that not so eagle-eyed fans could notice countless errors which were previously masked out. Most famously, this had included stand-ins for the main cast being visible on the edges of the frame, but in season 2 episode, the one where Old Yeller dies, it also caught the late great Matthew Perry forgetting his line. In one of the episode's early scenes, as Chandler, played by Perry, and Joey, Matt LeBlanc, talk to Monica, who's Courtney Cox, we cut to a reaction shot of Monica where Chandler can be seen silently mouthing, "What am I supposed to say?" On original 4:3 airings, Perry's face would have been cropped out of the frame entirely, obscuring the mistake, but the widescreen remaster brings it back in all its glory. As for what Perry's line actually was, oh, you almost had it. Number 8. The phone screen image in House of Cards. House of Cards received a lot of praise in its first season for being, at the time, one of the most lavish TV shows produced by a streaming service, with a then unprecedented production quality and degree of attention to detail. However, the first season's finale dropped the ball for a few seconds with an amusingly careless mistake. When roughly 20 minutes into the episode, journalist Zoe Barnes, played by Kate Mara, receives a text from Frank Underwood, played by Kevin Spacey. The close-up shot shows Zoe lifting her phone to the screen as the message is received, but for about 2 seconds, we can see that the phone screen is actually a screenshot. As the phone is lifted up, the orientation flips, confirming it to be screen grab from the phone's gallery rather than the phone's real home screen. From a production standpoint, this absolutely makes sense for continuity's sake, but why would a crew member not activate the phone's orientation lock to prevent the image from flipping? It's all the more strange given that this mistake could have easily been erased by just cutting the first 2 seconds of the shot. Number 7. Colton's magically changing sweater in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Basic continuity errors ultimately are not particularly interesting. They're a mundane and often unavoidable part of the filming process when you're dealing with numerous actors performing a scene together. But then there's this outrageously ridiculous mistake in the 5th season episode of The Fresh Prince, A Decent Proposal. Roughly 15 minutes into the episode, Will, played by Will Smith, who is recuperating from being shot, wheels himself into the living room where Colton and Ashley are sat watching TV. At first, Colton is very clearly wearing a bright yellow sweater, but after a close-up shot of Will turning to look at the pair, Colton is suddenly wearing a darker sweater with blue, yellow and red stripes on it. Then, after cutting back to Will, the next time we see Colton, he's once again wearing the yellow sweater. It's an odd mistake because it seems so avoidable. Just keep the wardrobe the same throughout shooting of a relatively simple scene. It's possible the shot with the darker sweater was a reshoot, but even so, could one of the most popular shows on TV really not find the same yellow sweater? Let us know what you think in the comments down below, and while you're there, drop us a like, share and subscribe too. Number 6. CGI product placement in Reacher. In May 2022, it was reported that Amazon would start using CGI to digitally insert up-to-date product placement into their shows on an ongoing basis. But months before that announcement, they already tested it out on the very first episode of action thriller series Reacher. Roughly 39 minutes into the first episode, as Reacher, played by Alan Richardson, and Roscoe, played by Willa Fitzgerald, drive past the thrift store, on the side of the store, a sign for the TurboTax can be seen. But take a closer look and you might notice that said sign has been digitally superimposed into the scene in post-production. The lighting doesn't quite match, causing it to stand out a little. Indeed, this is part of Amazon's dynamic digital product placement campaign, and depending on when you watch the scene, the sign may well be marketing another product entirely. At the time of press though, the digital sign has curiously been removed from the scene outright. Number 8. That coffee cup in Game of Thrones. Because Game of Thrones' 8th and final season wasn't targeted by enough issues, its 4th episode, The Last of the Starks, features one of the most widely mocked screw-ups in TV history. During the banquet sequence, a coffee cup can be briefly seen on the table by Daenerys, played by Emilia Clarke, and given the show's fantastical setting, that's quite the immersion-breaking mistake to make. Fans who noticed the error were left beside themselves that nobody among the cast and crew spotted the cup during filming or even during post-production, yet it evidently ended up hiding in plain sight. As the scene went viral on social media, however, HBO quickly got to work digitally erasing the cup, even if it nevertheless lives on thanks to those who clipped the scene out of the original airing and posted it to YouTube. The viral moment proved embarrassing enough for HBO that they made a concerted effort to look out for wild coffee cups while shooting the first season of prequel series House of Dragon. Number 4. The visible plane in Gunsmoke. Beyond widescreen presentation revealing a ton of cropped out mistakes in TV shows, there's the fact that many older TV series simply didn't ever expect to be viewed in high enough resolution that imperfections would ever be visible. Case in point, we have legendary Western drama series Gunsmoke, which ran between 1955 and 1975. In the season 7 episode A Man a Day, which aired in 1961, there's a shot where a plane can be seen flying over Chester, played by Janice Weaver's head in the background. Given that the show is set in the 1870s, more than 30 years before the first plane took flight, it of course makes absolutely no sense for a plane to be visible in the sky. But with Gunsmoke being made available in high resolution on streaming services in recent years, fans have started to notice numerous scenes with visible planes in the background, planes which would have been imperceptible to audiences during its original airing on CRT televisions over 60 years ago. Number 3. Frozen Jason Bateman in Ozark. Well, it doesn't get much weirder than this one. You technically can't call this a mistake as such, but it is an incredibly odd and oddly hilarious attempt to smooth over what was presumably an issue during shooting. In the first episode of the 4th and final season of Ozark, Marty, played by Jason Bateman, and Wendy, played by Laura Linney, meet with Darlene, Lisa Emery. And during the mid-shot of Marty and Wendy sat at a poker table, Marty appears to be robotically locked in a wide-eyed gaze. Seriously, he's frozen stiff and he doesn't move at all, indicating that the left-hand side of the frame has been paused, presumably due to some sort of production problem during filming. Perhaps the director decided to combine 2 takes into one, yet didn't have any usable moving footage of Jason Bateman and so just used a screen grab instead. Gotta do what you gotta do. Number 2. The green screen arm in 911. There are oddities, and then there's a mistake so ridiculously blatant you have to wonder whether anyone involved with the show actually watched the episode before it went on air. The first responder drama series 911 let an all-timer mistake slip through the cracks in the 3rd episode of the 3rd season, which depicts the aftermath of a tsunami hitting Santa Monica Pier. This results in a firefighter having his arm amputated, and at the end of the episode, we see said firefighter laid up in hospital as he's visited by other first responders. Except in one shot, the actor in question can be seen wearing a green sleeve over his arm, as would have been used to help the VFX team paint out the limb in question if, they actually did. Whether someone on the production forgot to key in the correct shot of the arm digitally removed, or the crew simply ran out of time to complete the shot before it aired, it's a shambolic mistake, especially as the green sleeve sticks out like a sore thumb. Somehow this passed through so many hands, crew members, a director, studio executives, and made it into our homes. And number 1, digital Livia Soprano in The Sopranos. From the accidental exclusion of CGI to the horrendous inclusion of it, we have The Sopranos' infamous use of increasing VFX technology to keep a character in the story following the death of the person who played him. Between the second and third seasons of The Sopranos, Nancy Marchand, who played Tony Soprano's cantankerous mother Livia, passed away, and so series creator David Chase was forced to both toss out her planned storyline for season 3 and explain her absence for the show's remainder. Rather than merely have Livia die off screen though, Chase opted to construct a final exchange between Livia and Tony with the help of CGI. In the season's second episode, Chase had unused footage of Marchand from prior episodes combined with VFX to create a digital double of Livia. Yet, even when the episode aired back in 2001, the effects were laughably unconvincing and, to modern eyes, seem outright embarrassing. Any hope from Chase and HBO that audiences would be so captivated by the scene that they wouldn't notice the effects were optimistic at best, delusional at worst. It was certainly a tough creative bind for Chase, but considering how distracting the wonky CGI ultimately is, it probably would have made more sense to just have her die off screen without this interaction.